recorded for posting on the MyPath website for future viewing. So we want to make sure that you are aware of that. As you can see on the screen here, today's speakers include Mike Caruso, the MyPath product manager, as well as Ralph Plaza, Senior Account Executive for MZ, who will be discussing Career Coach. As I mentioned before, my name is Dave Quintanilla, and I am here on behalf of Enabling Services. Our agenda for today will be to begin with Mike going over a overview of MyPath, followed by Ralph presenting an overview of Career Coach, and then we'll transition over into your questions. Our goals today are to meet these three learning objectives that you should see on your screen here. How MyPath can help solve the problems of learner onboarding, the high attrition between application and enrollment, the Career Coach application and its value, and then hopefully Mike will be able to share some experience from colleges that are currently implementing MyPath. With that being said, let me go ahead and turn it on, stop sharing my screen here, and turn it on over to Mike Caruso. Whenever you're ready, Mike, go ahead and begin.
Okay, all right, can you hear me okay?
Yes, definitely.
All righty, perfect. Okay, thanks everybody for joining us today. Happy Wednesday. Happy to be talking to all of you guys. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about CCC MyPath and how it can help sort of improve your student onboarding process. Some of the ways that MyPath sort of brings some additional context to different kinds of incoming students. And we'll be doing a little bit of a highlight of the Career Coach tool, which comes packaged with MyPath as well after my portion of the presentation here. So the way that I generally like to kick this presentation off, and bear in mind as we go through this is very much a 10,000 foot overview, right? Once we get into some sessions that are sort of one-on-one with your colleges as you choose to implement the product, we can kind of go more in depth on some of the features and integrations that we offer. But you know, when it comes to kind of describing the overall purpose and problem that MyPath is trying to solve for, you know, it's important to start with the problem statement, and that came out of a investigation of the traffic we're seeing from CCCApply. So this is a statistic that some people will have heard, maybe many of you will not. But we did an examination of the total volume of electronic applications that are coming into the California community college system. So holistically, right, across every college, we sort of looked at the total volume of applications. We deduped that number for applications in bad faith, spam applications, you know, those kinds of things. We tried to boil it down, excuse me, as much as possible to a real number. And once we did that, we then did some legwork to compare that amount of applications to the total number of enrollments that we see across the system. And truly, this statistic was a little bit staggering to us, because what we found about a year and a half ago, and I understand this problem has actually gotten slightly worse now, but about a year and a half ago, we did determine that about 71% of the total number of applications that come into the system do not then result in a student enrolling at college or at the college that they applied to. As I understand it, per one of Omid from the Chancellor's Office's recent presentations, that number has actually grown to 75%. So this is a problem, obviously, that's not really getting better. And so I'm happy to sort of talk to you guys about MyPath, because we think that MyPath will actually be able to help solve for this problem. And I say that because what followed that investigation was obviously an examination of what that student user experience looks like for somebody who's coming in from the application. And it goes a little bit something like this. A student will arrive at your college's website. They will determine that they want to apply. So they'll click on the apply to college link wherever you have that. And that will launch them into the account creation and application process, where they spend about, I think 20-ish minutes on average. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's about 20 minutes going through the full application process. So they are filling out this pretty extended web form, telling us in the strongest terms available to them that they are extremely interested in attending your institution. I mean, otherwise they wouldn't be sitting through this process. They push submit at the end of the application, and what we give them is a page that says, "Thank you for applying," and then that's the end of it. That's where it ends, right? The student then has no real option as far as what happens next, so they basically go off and and disappear into the ether of the internet. Maybe they surf Facebook, maybe they were on break at work, so they go back to, you know, their shift or whatever. But the point of the story really is that once they push submit, there's nothing really that we can do for them until you, as the colleges, download that student's application via the download client, process it, create the record locally, and then send them an email with whatever the next steps are. You're essentially relying on that process to happen quickly. And then once that process has happened, you're relying on the student to go to their email inbox, find that email, and hopefully follow whatever instructions you've given them. And then hoping that they then you know, transition into an enrollment, right? So you can see there's obviously a little bit of a hole in the funnel, right? We know there's a problem. We kind of have an idea, obviously, of where students are falling out of the process, or at least what one of the flaws is in the process. And MyPath steps in specifically to that hole and will help to bridge the gap, really, between the application and the enrollment, hopefully. So let's talk a little bit about what MyPath is and how it works. So MyPath is an onboarding platform that surrounds the application, right? And we'll talk a little bit about that piece a little bit later. We'll focus for now on the way that it follows the application. What you can do when you implement MyPath is, it's pretty simple, right? You configure MyPath and the content that goes into it. And again, we'll touch on that a little bit later. And what that provides your students with is a different ending page in the application. So instead of just a page that says, thank you for applying, and then nothing happens afterwards, they actually get a message that says, hey, you know, your college, whatever the college's name is, has an onboarding process already ready for you. Please begin, entering this experience, basically. And they get a navigation link, a button that's very prominent at the end of the application. It's in CCCApply itself because we are integrated with them. And the student can click it and end up in an experience that looks similar to this one. Now, obviously, this is a demonstration college, so this is just a bunch of sample content. But you can imagine a student would enter an experience like this one. They would see your college name. This bar would be whatever color, you know, your college has chosen. You know, your logo would be up here. These images that are scrolling through in the background here are pictures of your students, your campus, you know, sports teams if you have them, buildings that are sort of significant for your campus. Whatever it really takes to make the initial sort of visual experience look and feel like they've really begun interacting with the systems at the college. And then we get down here to the sort of the meat and potatoes of the experience. So this product was designed in conjunction specifically with California Community College students. Obviously, we're a part of the system, and so we build software for specifically this set of students. And they provided a lot of feedback on different UI ideas that we were putting forward. And you know, we sort of did these tests and these reviews with students of all different kinds of backgrounds. So students who are young, students who are old, students who are comfortable with technology, students who are not, you know, a very wide variety of students. And one of the pretty universal threads of feedback that we found amongst all of them is that they dislike being dropped into a user experience that is expecting them to figure out where to go, in what order to do things, what is, you know, visually what is expected of them, what their progress looks like. Essentially just a flat experience that doesn't give them a lot of context or instruction, right? And so MyPath was designed to be as prescriptive as possible. So the entire UI is sort of based around what we call these advisor cards, which are really tasks and checklists that you create, that you customize for your students to help them understand, now that they've submitted their application, what are the next steps for incoming students, for onboarding students, right? It could be to watch an orientation video. It could be to read about financial aid. It could be to do career exploration, which we'll show you a little bit later with Career Coach. All of these cards, the titles of them, the number of tasks, what the tasks are and where they point, completely customized by your college, right? You can choose to embed content in MyPath. It's very simple. We give you a Microsoft Word-like interface to create content pages inside of MyPath, or you can take these links and point them to your own website, your own portal, external pages that you want your students to familiarize themselves with. But the idea is that you're now guiding their experience after the application and trying to help them get to information that is useful for incoming students. Now, one of the things that's really important to mention, and I'm sure that all of you know this, is that there is no such thing as an onboarding experience that is one size fits all. There is no set of links or order that you can create here that is as useful for one student as it is to all the rest, right? There are a million different ways that these students are all different from one another, and therefore different pieces of content will be of different use to them. And so to alleviate some of that, or to help you address that particular nuance, we actually, and I'll go back to this again, we're integrated with CCCApply. So MyPath actually gets all of the application data that a student submits before even the college does, right? We store it in what we call the student profile, and MyPath comes complete with what we call the rules engine, which will allow you to write rules based on the application data that the student has submitted to your college. So you can do things like have this onboarding experience reorient itself with different steps if the student has indicated that they're a veteran, or if the student has indicated that they need childcare services, or if the student has indicated that they're interested in EOPS. Really, the possibilities are endless. But the idea is that you can actually create an onboarding pathway via this rules engine that is uniquely set up for every individual student. So every student will see an onboarding pathway that is very slightly different than other students, because it is reactive to what it is that they've told us about themselves in the application. So in that way, we are sort of just in time, but also highly tailored to what we have learned about the students in this application process that they've just sat through, right? I mean, they spent 20 minutes filling out this web form. We may as well make as much use of the data that we're learning about them as we possibly can. And obviously, by doing that, give them the best chance at succeeding. Now, the last piece, and one of the things I want to mention before we talk about the other way you can implement MyPath, is that we definitely know that, as we described at the beginning, one of the problems is that students are applying and then they're falling out of the funnel, right? We're not hearing from them again. Maybe they're not responding to the emails we're sending. Maybe we didn't get them to them fast enough to sort of capture their attention, whatever. So MyPath is intended to bridge that gap between the application and the enrollment. And one of the ways that we do that is with a communications engine, right? So MyPath is able to send emails. It's able to send text messages to the student's number that they give us during the application, and also to deliver messages to them in the inbox that they'll see right here as soon as they land in MyPath itself. So they could actually get a welcome message from your college the instant they hit this process, rather than relying on the student to then hopefully check their email inbox at some point later, right? This is also tied to the rules engine. So you're able to send customized messaging to your students depending on what facts we've learned about them during the application process, right? So you can imagine they're getting a customized onboarding pathway, customized tasks, and then you're messaging them the second they get here with things that are useful to them specifically. Also, it's very easy to enable reminder messages to go out to students as well. So, you know, we talked about how students may disappear off and go do other things right after they submit the application. You can actually check boxes in MyPath that will cause MyPath to send out 1 day, 2 day, 5 day, 7 day reminders to the student that are tailored to whatever the next onboarding step is that they have not yet completed. So if I were coming here and I were to close my MyPath experience before I finished, let's say, the what careers fit me task, MyPath would then say, hey, we see that you've checked the box for 24-hour reminders. I'm going to send out a message trying to get them to come back to MyPath and keep engaging with the onboarding process that the college has created. And the idea would be, of course, that this is trying to keep them coming back to the process, keep them engaged with the college, keep messaging them to try to get them to transition to that enrollment. And the messages that we send, of course, especially the emails, are customized with your college's branding. So they have your college's name in them, they have your logo, your colors, all those kinds of things are embedded into the email. So it feels very much like the college system's reaching out to them. Okay, so that's really kind of the 10,000-foot overview, again, of the MyPath post-application experience. I also want to really briefly, before we turn this over to Ralph, mention that you can actually also decide to turn on MyPath prior to the application as well, if that's something that you want to do. And the reason you may choose to do something like that is because you want to enhance the quality of the responses you're getting in the application, right? So what you may determine is that you think that some students, in order to get through the application faster, are just picking things off of a pick list. Maybe they're getting to the part where they have to declare what program of study they're interested in. And maybe you're worried that students are just picking whatever the top thing is on that list because they don't actually know, right? Because a lot of students don't actually know what it is they want to study when they apply to college. And so you might choose to have students go through a few steps in MyPath, like career exploration, and you'll see in a minute how Career Coach can help with this, so that they get an idea of what kinds of careers or jobs or fields of study are suited to them, or that they are suited for. And then when they get to that portion of the application, they're giving you responses that are real, responses you can trust, things that that are more educated than if they're just picking things off of a list with no real prior context for the decisions that they're making. It's very easy to do so. Implementing MyPath is actually really easy, and we'll talk a little bit about that, of course, later. But I want to stress a couple things. One, this does not require your IT department to manage on an ongoing basis. The creation of content, the customization of the onboarding pathway, the uploading of branding and images and all those kinds of things is done very simply and with an interface that is designed explicitly for people who are not software developers, right? It does not require a lot of technical expertise to be able to manage and manipulate MyPath for your students. And the other thing too is that we have ongoing feedback and assistance calls with the MyPath development teams that we can actually help your college through any issues that you're running into as you configure the product. I wish we had enough time today for me to also tell you all about some of the things that we have on our roadmap. We're focused on a lot of things. One of the major features that we have coming in the next 6 to 8 months is the ability to ask your students to upload documents in MyPath. So you can do things like collect residency forms and things of that nature in the onboarding process immediately following the application. That'll be especially useful, as I'm given to understand, for students who are coming in through the international application, as an example. So there's a lot of exciting features that are still in process for MyPath, but what we do know is that colleges are using MyPath already. They're very happy with it in a lot of cases. They're using a vast variety of different kinds of tasks for their students. I mean, I've seen some colleges that use MyPath as a way to promote the adoption of their mobile app, as an example. It's a great way to get the mobile app in front of students the second they push submit on the application. Hugh, I think if you wouldn't mind, maybe we can tell folks at the end of this call here about where to go watch the demonstration that Julia from Sierra gave. They gave an excellent demonstration of the Sierra College MyPath account. You'll be able to see there some of how our colleges are actually using this product.
Yep, I'll make sure and give them some information on that as well.
Great. Okay, so that's my spiel. That's the 10,000-foot overview of MyPath. Of course, like I said, when we get down to these sort of one-on-one with your college calls, we can answer more nuanced questions or talk about specific features. But really, this is how MyPath works. These are the problems we're trying to solve and how we're hoping to help your students. And I think now we can probably hand this over to Ralph to show you guys a little bit about the way Career Coach works.
Thanks, Mike. Ralph, if you want to go ahead and it looks like you're muted, so I'll go ahead and unmute you. And Ralph, do you mind?
Great, super.
Excellent. Thank you, Ralph. Go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, okay. Great. Hopefully you all can see my screen. It says, welcome to Career Coach.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, super. Well, thank you for having me come this afternoon, and welcome everyone. We have adapted, which is to say MZ, economic modeling. Many of you kind of work with us in different applications, different ways. We do a number of things with community colleges. So you might be familiar with MZ, but this is one of the ways where we work with the Chancellor's Office and through the Tech Center to be able to help you all in this great portal of MyPath. My attempt to here is to be able to kind of show you briefly what Career Coach can do and what it looks like and what we've sort of adapted to work with your system here. So effectively, what we're looking at here is this is the home page for Career Coach. Career Coach has an application where a student could just start looking at careers if they wanted to. They could start browsing programs, and they can also do something that's kind of tricky, and I'll show you this kind of trick. It's kind of neat where they can put in their military mock code. Okay, so what they do is they would choose their branch. Okay, whether they were enlisted, etc., and then they would put their code in, for example. And then what this does is it corresponds SOC codes, standard occupation codes, with their military codes to give them an idea of what kind of corresponds with some of the skills and some of the things that they're involved with. Gives you an idea of kind of brings in quite a bit of information sort of to them to be able to see, hey, what does that translate into the civilian realm? That's just one kind of aspect that I wanted to show you. So But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to kind of go through it as a student might come in and just starting with an assessment. So our assessment is pretty straightforward. It's modeled after the Holland code. And so what we've done is we've got a 6-question and a 60-question. So most people are going to take the 6. Most people have taken the 6 throughout all the career coaches that we have. That's kind of the most popular. The idea is to get our students into exploring careers, being able to understand the breadth and width that is out there and how your programs correspond to them, okay? So I'm going to show you kind of how this goes, taking the 6-question assessment. This is just a quick sort of comforting thing for students to say, look, don't worry about costs, you know, let's see what your strengths are. And the 6th question is pretty straightforward. It's very simple. What would you like to do? Work with your hands, objects, machines, tools, etc. You know, work, play outside, that sort of thing. So it asks very simple questions that kind of get them to say, yeah, okay, yeah, I like that. Okay, would you like to observe, learn, analyze, evaluate, solve problems? Okay, and so it's just little by little. It's kind of like helping them kind of understand, you know, what it is, who they are, and communicate that through this. You know, express yourself creatively. Use your imagination or intuition. Not so much. So let's say these questions were like, no, I don't like that so much. Inform, enlighten, teach, counsel, cure people. Yeah, I think that's be interesting. Influence or persuade, lead or manage. No, not so much. That's not my thing. Work with facts and numbers and details. You know, so you can see it's very simple, very kind of straightforward questions that a student would be able to kind of ask. So from those 6 questions, we've created this person that these are kind of the traits: realistic, social, investigative. Little blurb on what those kind of indicate. And hopefully, what you're getting is you're getting the student, or the I'll call them students, but you know they're either displaced workers, or you know, potential students that are going to come in and try and see what programs you have that might help them. And what this has done is we've done it has matched all of 16 occupation clusters, okay? And it said, well, actually, health science is 100% your match. In other words, from what we put into our assessment, 100% is the closest that we found is health science. So a student might click into the health sciences and see even further, kind of going down. And this is what I was getting at, to where we're trying to get a student to be able to understand the breadth and width of what health sciences is, okay? They may or may not know that, hopefully, and what we found is this really helps them kind of get into it and really understand it. So 100% is diagnosis and treatment. One of the things I'll mention here, let's say we look at information technology, and as well what the student is thinking in terms of the career clusters here. So I'm going to hit diagnosis and treatment, and then we start to get information quite a bit. Basically what we're doing is we're providing a student a wealth of information, of pretty heavy duty labor market information, but it's very accessible and very attainable. I hope you would agree. And so what we're looking at here is from this health sciences, what we've done is we've looked at kind of further careers, okay, radiologists, and we see here we're actually looking at doctoral. And so I'm going to get rid of, you know, doctoral level and even master's. Let's get rid of that. I'm going to leave the bachelor's just to make it kind of fun. But what you see is right away that changes the careers that we're looking at. So as we do this, we see that there's an annual wage. This is a median wage for the region that we've chosen, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. And here it also says the typical level of entry level of education. So this is this is actually national typical level of education. And what it does is right away, it's, as I say, pretty heavy duty labor market information that a student can look at and say, oh, most of the people here have associate's degree. You know, veterinarian, most of the people have associate's degree as well. Nursing, you know, as well. So they kind of look and see, and they're getting labor market information, and they're just absorbing it. We hope, and we found. So let's say they're like, oh, registered nurse, I like that. That's $103,000 a year, right? And so now we're looking at registered nurse in the region that was chosen. One of the things I'll mention here is when they come through the MyPath portal, your region will be selected. So the default, if you're just to go into this site, is California-wide, okay? So all the colleges in California are mapped into Career Coach. And then all of the regions, which we use the Doing What Matters regions, are mapped as well. So if a student were to come in from a particular MyPath, and let's say it's the East Bay, okay, you see that the information changes. So all the information is regional, okay? So now we're just looking at East Bay colleges, okay? So for the sake of our discussion here, let's say they came through a MyPath college from the East Bay, and so this is what they would see for nursing, okay? So they get information about overall, this sort of overall information. Information that's pretty valuable, again, pretty attainable as you see, okay? And then these are the programs that are available, okay? And so a student could also get information about what about this career, daily tasks. Well, these are daily tasks, and there's more information associated with this. You know, much more could be said about how we do this and what's in here, and we'd be happy to answer any questions at the end if you have that. Here's the national level national level attainment information that to give the student some more information on that. Very similar to the one that we had on the other graph. Here's the skills that employers are asking for in the region we've chosen once again. Wages. So this gives the student what the wages are, the 10th percentile to the 90th percentile. Again, this information is regional information. And then employment. So information about what are the job postings for this particular career? What are the companies posting for this career? Okay, so a student would come here and say, oh, wow, you know, I'm familiar with these companies. I could see myself working there or not, right? Just giving them information. And what is the trajectory of this job? Again, heavy-duty labor market information that is very accessible and very attainable to a student that's coming in. It appears that this is growing in the next 10 years or so. Okay, so that's what we have there. And then now we have all of the colleges in the region. The region that we've chosen are listed here in terms of all the programs that are available. So a student could go to one of these colleges and say, hey, here we go, Chabot, I like that. And so from here, they've chosen this particular program. They can save it, it would go into their profile, and that would kind of keep them connected as well. Or they can actually look at some more other careers that are associated with this. Okay, so if they wanted to do that, so give you an idea of what that would look like. And then this brings them into, you know, another career that might, interest them. So that's how, Career Coach works. Generally speaking, what the students will be asked to do if they want to save something, it'll ask them to create a login, which is a very, very simple process where if they don't have one, or if they're not coming in through a MyPath college, which maybe Mike can talk to you about that as well. So that's Career Coach sort of in a nutshell. And I look forward to any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Ralph. So at this
okay, great.
We are ready for any questions you may have. So if you have any questions about any part of the presentation, whether it be what Mike shared or what Ralph presented, please let us know in the chat box, and we'd be happy to take those at this time and go ahead and answer those. While you are formulating your questions in the chat box, I'll go ahead and just let everyone know that I will be giving the information that Mike had mentioned earlier on how to access different parts of different presentations, such as the Sierra College presentation that you mentioned. I'll also let you know how if your college is interested in implementing MyPath, where to go to get that taken care of. So let's go ahead and just give a couple seconds for any possible questions. Okay, and it looks like there's a question in here from Scott, and this one looks like it's for you, Mike. And the question is, how long does it take to install and get the MyPath program up and running? What is the cost?
Great. Okay, so in terms of install, it depends a little bit. So there are really two technical requirements for getting MyPath set up, which are SSO related. So we want to make sure that if you ever decide to send your students back to MyPath, once they have accounts at the college, that they're able to do so using their local college credentials and not having to remember some extra set of usernames and passwords. But what we found is that for college, since most colleges have participated in other sort of statewide programs like Canvas and things like that, a lot of colleges have those steps already complete. And so with those steps out of the way, configuring MyPath itself can really be done in a matter of days. It really depends on what the team that's working on MyPath and deciding what content is going to go into it at the college, like how complicated they want to make it, how much content they want to configure, whether they want to use rules. But truly, it is very fast, it's very easy, and it can be done in just a matter of days if you guys have the drive to do so. In terms of the cost, I'm a little bit annoyed with myself that I didn't talk about this earlier because it is my favorite part of the presentation, but it's free. It is, of course, free. There's no cost to it. We don't charge for the implementation. We don't charge for the use of the product. And we also include Career Coach or access to Career Coach as well. So that's something we're pretty proud of.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike. Let's see. Is there any additional questions? Oh, we have one from Neil. How are both MyPath and Career Coach attached to CCCApply, i.e. how would students access them?
Sure, that's a good question. So like we talked about a little bit during the presentation, essentially we will help you turn on MyPath in the position that your college wants it. So your choices are sort of following the application, which was kind of the focus of my portion of the presentation. As I mentioned, you can also turn it on before the application so that students will go to MyPath before going into the application. Or you can actually choose to do both, right? You can have MyPath bookend the application, so to speak. Career Coach is accessed via MyPath, so that's pretty simple. You just put a link to Career Coach in MyPath, whether it be in one of the advisor cards, the tasks, or from a message that you send the student or an application launcher. Really, it's all pretty simple. You can just kind of easily allow your students to get there from MyPath. And the integration with CCCApply really is very simple. The way you launch it is you simply replace your existing CCCApply link, and it will know how to call MyPath and in what position students should see it. It's very simple. In terms of your returning students, if there are students that are already sort of attending your college that you want to be able to send to MyPath for access to things like Career Coach, you can very easily just add a link to it on your website or your portal or what have you.
And Scott is asking about the demo from Sierra, so I will go ahead and make sure that gets included. At the very least, I'll send you to the website. If not, I'll make sure that when the posting about the recording goes out, the link to the demo from Sierra College is also included as well in that. So you should be receiving both the notification on the webinar, this webinar's recording, and then the link to Sierra College's demo.
Yeah, I know I think Sandoval has it uploaded to YouTube now, so we can.
Oh, perfect. Looks like Neil has a question about what other follow-up features come with MyPath.
A little unclear what you mean by that. Oh, like what other methods of communication are bundled with it? So, we talked a little bit about this during the MyPath portion of the presentation. So there is a communications engine that's associated with MyPath that can send messages to the inbox in MyPath, to the student's email inbox, or also it can send SMS text messages as well. There are a variety of ways to leverage that communication service. So you can write rules that will message students under certain circumstances that you define. You can also turn on automated reminders to students that will automatically reach out to them when they have, for example, incomplete onboarding tasks. And that's really a way to help keep your students engaged in the onboarding process until they can fully transition into, your local systems and enrollment. Those are all very easy to set up, and we'll talk about those with your college when we go through the implementation process.
Okay. Can we see some of the intake questions that students, let's see, let's go ahead and go first to Scott's. Can we see some of the intake questions that are asked to new students to decide the decision-making process? Can you just share your screen for that, Mike?
I'm trying to understand what's being asked here. So can we see some of the intake questions that are asked to the new students to decide the decision-making process? Scott, could you help me out a little bit and rephrase that for me?
Okay. And while he does that, let me go ahead and jump over to Neil's question then. Does it track student progress? If they see certain areas, is this data made available to the colleges?
Yeah, great question. So it does track student progress. Each of those advisor cards has a progress bar that will fill up as students complete tasks, and further, each of the actual tasks on the advisor card will check off once it's complete. Right now, that is self-contained within MyPath, but we are actively working with the first college to be able to send that progress data to you. We actually have one of our existing colleges, Golden West, is actually looking to potentially replace their onboarding platform with MyPath, and so we'll be hopefully basically using MyPath status to flip that priority registration flag in the SIS. So that's something that we're working on with them right now. Like other than needs for financial aid, if they're better. Okay, Scott. So Q, just to read this off. So he's asking about how MyPath is determining that a student has indicated they need financial aid or if they're a veteran, things like that. So these are all questions that are asked of the student in CCCApply. So essentially, the facts that we learn about a student in CCCApply, and there's a lot of them, right? Whether they have indicated interest in EOPS, whether they're a veteran, whether they're ESL, the list is pretty long. We actually get that data as soon as they push submit on the application. So it goes to the college, but it also goes to us. And we use that data to help you drive the rules that will then create the onboarding process that you've specified in MyPath. And to be clear, you actually have the ability to set up like a general onboarding process that will be shown to everybody and then modify that with rules. So like, here are the 4 static or standard cards that I want to show to my students. And then if I learn these other things about them in the application, I also want to display these things, or I want to reorder these things. Hopefully that makes sense.
So let me go ahead and see if there are any other additional questions. And it looks like we might have answered all their questions. If not, they pop up while I'm doing my closing stuff. We'll go ahead and make sure we stop to answer those. But in the interim, I want to let you all know that if you are ready to sign up your college for CCC MyPath, make sure that you contact our Enabling Services College Relationship Managers at the email address listed on the screen. The College Relationship Managers will be able to answer any other additional questions you may have, set up a demo for the product for your college, and just in general assist you in making the decision to implement MyPath. The website here, cccapply.org, is the website that has the link to all of our existing webinars as well as Sierra College's demo. Just click on the resources link on that webpage and it'll take you directly there. If you'd like to get involved with our user community, that is listed down here at the bottom of the screen. Make sure that you go ahead and jump in on that. And right before we go ahead and wrap up, Mike, there's one more question from Neil. Have any colleges tied this together with AB 705 implementation?
Yes, that's another really timely question. So AB 705 is obviously on the front of a lot of people's minds right now. We are at the Tech Center working on a couple of different things right now. So on top of data delivery of the placements directly to the college, we have a feature coming in the springtime that will allow MyPath to also render those placement recommendations to the students as an onboarding step. So while no colleges are addressing AB 705 with MyPath like live today, that feature functionality is absolutely coming in the very near future. So stay tuned for more information on that.
Excellent. And then with that as our final question, we want to thank you for joining us today for this webinar. As I mentioned earlier, a link to the recording of this particular webinar, as well as the link to Sierra College, will be sent out in an email to everyone who registered for the webinar and the presentation today. So look for that in your email inbox within the next 5 business days. In the interim, I want to thank you for joining us again and wish you all a good afternoon and a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.